Thank you so much for joining me. We missed a Thursday night last week because we were supposed to be co-hosting a Black History Month themed trivia night at the Norwich Museum, but unfortunately that wasn't a go after all. So hopefully we will be able to reschedule Black History Month themed trivia night at the Norwich Museum. And tonight, I think I will probably read the last of the sixth book in the Animorphs series, but I did do 6+ hours of driving yesterday through the snowstorm, so I am not 100% committed to finishing this book because I just don't know if my eyeballs are going to be up for finishing it. So if it's a real struggle, then maybe not, but I think we'll probably get through the last of this. As a recap, so the issue the Animorphs are facing in the sixth book is that the Yeerks have infiltrated a hospital. They seem to have infested or made human controllers out of several of the surgeons and anesthesiologists, so that when patients check in for however minor a surgical procedure, they check out as a human controller because they've been yerked while they were anesthetized. And the immediate problem is that the governor, yes, the governor of whatever mystery state the Animorphs live in is scheduled for some minor surgical procedure. And the governor has also recently announced his candidacy for president of the United States of America. So there is a very real, non-zero chance that the governor could win the election and the next president of the United States of America could be a human controller, and then it's kind of game over. And somehow that just sounds so hopeful compared to what has actually transpired in the years between 1996 and today. Sorry, just finding where we left off. While infiltrating the hospital themselves, Jake was knocked unconscious and fell headfirst into the portable Yeerk pool where the Yeerks awaiting hosts were being kept, and he has been infested. Luckily, Yeerks and Andalites are like oil and water, so Axe, like this did not get past Axe. He sensed the Yeerk kind of right away. Okay. Chapter 19. Okay, Marco said. We need a place to keep him. We can't use anyone's home, Cassie said, thinking out loud. We can't use my barn. My dad is in and out of there constantly. I know a place, Tobias said. It's not far from here. An old shack back in the woods. We can tie him up, Rachel said. But we'll still have to have at least one of us there all the time to make sure he doesn't get away. I cannot help you very much, Axe said. I will be pretending to be Jake. Okay, Marco said. Then the rest of us, Cassie, Rachel, and I, will rotate shifts, along with Tobias. Tobias can stay the whole time, except when he has to go hunting. Okay, let's go, Rachel said. Come on, Jake, get up. We're out of here. Cassie came over and gave me her hand. She helped pull me to my feet. It was an odd moment because I could feel Cassie's touch, and yet I had no power to squeeze her hand or give her any reassurance. The Yeerk did that for me. He deliberately held her hand a few extra seconds. She cares for you, the Yeerk said. She is their weak link. Rachel will be strong. So will the hawk and the Andalite. But Marco, he thinks too much, and he has an interesting history. He is open to persuasion. I felt sick. The Yerk was opening my mind at will, reading whatever he wanted. I had no secrets from him. None. He already knew everything I knew about my friends. If he got away, my feet began walking. Tobias led the way, appearing and disappearing through the trees above. Rachel walked ahead of me. Behind me, Marco and Axe. Cassie stayed by my side. From all we know, Jake, you can still hear me and understand me, Cassie was saying. I know you can't answer, or if you do answer, it won't be you, anyway. But it is me, said the Yerk. Who else would it be? The Yerk, Cassie said calmly. Hmm. Sorry. You think I'm a controller just because I yelled at Axe? Like I've never lost my temper before? Come on. It was a bad day. For all of us. It was a bad day. But especially for me. Not so bad a day, Axe piped up from behind. How many Yerks were in that pool? How many survived those temperatures? Only you, by getting inside Prince Jake. How many of your pool fellows died today? I could feel the Yerk boiling with rage. It was shocking and bizarre to feel so much emotion. It was something he could not hide from me. I could feel his emotions, even though I could not penetrate his thoughts. Hmm. Axe, the Yerk said. I'm never happy when any creature has to be destroyed, but I don't feel any pity for those Yerks. They are out to enslave us. We did what we had to do. It was perfect, exactly what I would have said, because it was exactly what I felt, and the Yerk knew that. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Cassie looking at me with a puzzled expression. See? Already she has doubts, the Yerk said to me. She is bothered by the sorry. She is bothered by the Andalite's bloodthirstiness. She liked what I said more. Was he right? Would all of my friends stand firm? How could they, when every word I spoke sounded exactly like me? We marched through the woods for what seemed like a very long time. None of us could move very fast because we were without shoes. Tobias knew these woods well and led us around brambles and through led us around brambles and rough patches. But still, my feet were tender after an hour of walking on pine needles and twigs. But the pain was so far away. I was feeling it from a distance. It was like I was shackled. It felt like I was shackled, chained to a wall. I could not move a hand or even a finger. I did not blink my own eyes. I did not decide which direction to look or what sounds to focus on. The Yerk's control was absolute. Hmm. Almost there, Tobias said. I'm going higher to make sure the area is completely clear. All this walking, such a waste of effort, the Yerk commented to me. They can they cannot possibly hold me against my will, not even for 3 hours, let alone 3 days. You heard Tobias, right, Jake? Cassie asked. Almost there. It's a good thing. My feet are killing me. I need to walk barefoot more often, like I did when I was little. Toughen up for times like these. Getting home will be easier. I'm sorry, getting home will be easier. I can just use my osprey morph and fly home. Cassie, listen, the Yerk said. I know you guys think you're doing the right thing, but there's no way Axe can pull off being me. My parents will figure it out. Or worse yet, Tom will figure it out. Then we'll all be dead. Don't you see what's happening here? Shut up, Yerk, Rachel snapped. I've known Jake all my life. Marco has known him since they were kids, and Cassie has known him for years. Between the three of us, we can teach Axe to pass for Jake. It will never work, the Yerk said. Rachel stopped walking. She turned to face me, blocking the way. She was smirking, but she seemed to be looking past me over my shoulder. No, you don't think so, Yerk? The Yerk stopped walking. Rachel, you don't have to try to impress me with how tough you are. Hmm, I know I know you're too smart to really believe any of this, and you know as well as I do. This is not going to work. Hmm? I disagree, a voice behind me said. Humans believe what they see. The Yerk whipped my head around. There, standing a few feet from me, was me. Totally, absolutely me. Chapter 20. He was a perfect copy of me, like looking in a mirror. I morphed a while back, Axe said. I've been watching the way you walk and move to copy you better. Tur, bet, tur. The Yerk grinned. You may look like me, but that isn't going to be enough. I give it an hour before Tom figures it out. Marco looked at Rachel and cocked an eyebrow. Rachel looked at Cassie, who sighed and nodded her head. See, that was a stupid way to play it, Yerk, Marco said. If you really were Jake, you might If you really were Jake, you might be frustrated that we wrongly suspected you, but you'd figure the smart thing would be to help Axe play the role. If you were you, so to speak, you'd have to hope Axe pulled it off. Rachel curled her lip contemptuously. You just blew final jeopardy. You're still trying to make us let you go. By now, Jake would have realized he had to help us succeed. The Yerk said nothing. I think he knew he'd made an error, but I still sensed absolute confidence from him, like a poker player holding an extra ace. I think that's called a cheater. We reached the shack. It was a depressing, half fallen down mess with a wood floor and log walls and a roof that only covered half the place. There was a bird's nest of some type in the rafters. Bushes had grown in through a hole in one wall. There were beer cans and soda cans strewn around, but they all looked pretty old, nothing recent. Tobias had chosen well. We would probably be left alone for the 3 days. Tobias, with his laser vision, had found a few feet of rope in an old campground. He flew back with it in with his talons, and Marco and Rachel tied my hands behind my back. Sorry, Jake, Marco said, but that's the way it is. If you're still in there, you understand. We'll loosen the rope every couple of hours so the circulation isn't cut off, Rachel said. I'll be here for the first shift. Cassie and Marco are going back with Axe to get him prepared to play you. She smiled. He already has the serious, responsible sounding thing down. They just need to give him a sense of humor and stop him from playing with every sound he says. It sounded fairly good to me, but I was nervous that only 2 of them would be around to guard me. Of course, one of those 2 was Tobias, and I could never run fast enough to hide from him. And Rachel could morph into a wolf and run me down. But it bothered me that the Yerk in my head had not lost his cockiness. In fact, he was reveling in a fantasy of promotions and power. Within a few hours, I will be back with my kind. I will personally tell Visser 3 all I know. It will be the end of your little band. The end. Visser 3 will promote me again. It will be the fastest series of promotions ever. It will be the fastest series of promotions ever, and I'm already in the 100s. I could rise into the 90s. I will be an undervisor. In a few of your years, who knows? I could be a visor. But it was more than just talk. I could see the pictures too. The images his mind conjured up. They were sketchy, but I saw Visser 3 nodding his head as my Yerk, still in my body, showed him my friends. They were all bound and gagged and lying helpless on the floor of Visser 3's blade ship. Why was I seeing this? Why was I seeing this? The Yerk was able to shield his other thoughts. Was this fantasy too emotional for him to hide from me? Or was he actually showing off for my benefit? Do you have these fantasies a lot? I said, as cruelly as I could. You want to laugh at my fantasies? Shall I delve into a few of yours? Let's see what's hidden deep in your brain, human. And then, to my horror, I was no longer in the cabin. It was a bright, huge gymnasium, but not exactly a gym, a sports arena. Yes, with thousands and thousands of fans. I felt like crawling away. I knew this fantasy. It was kind of lame, I guess, but I could not escape. The Yerk could play my fantasies as easily as sticking a cassette tape into a VCR. In my fantasy, people were cheering, and there I was, in a pro uniform. I was older, but I still looked pretty much like myself. The game clock was at 5 seconds. 4, 3. I sat up and took an incredible 3-point shot from mid-court. Swoosh! The stadium went crazy, cheering, horns sounding, people chanting my name. And there was Cassie, in the stands, smiling at me. She was sitting with my parents. And there was Tom. He walked out into the court and threw his arms around me. He patted me on the back. Great game, he said, as usual. End of fantasy. The images disappeared. I felt very small suddenly, very unimportant, very weak. Oh, yes, the Yerk said and laughed. It shocks you that I can play your thoughts back for you. Your brain is no different to me than one of your primitive human computers. I open any file I like, I play any software. I use you, I own you, I dominate you. You are nothing anymore, just an echo, just a ghost haunting the machine of your own brain. Yeah, I managed to say. Well, you're a screw up who's tied up in a cabin in the woods, and in 3 days, you're dead. I won't be here in 3 days, he said. You'll be here, far from your stinking yerk pool, no Candrono rays, and you'll shrivel and die and crawl out of me. I had been calm, but then I lost control. You'll die. You'll die like the others died. Sorry. You'll die like the others died. You think you'll win? You'll lose. You'll lose. You can't control me. You can't control me. You can't control me. Oh? The Yerk asked with a silky menace. That's just what your brother said. At first. Shall I show you? Shall I play one of Tom's memories for you? I can feel you cringe. I can feel your fear. Yes, yes, I will. Here, enjoy a preview of your future. It was like a third mind had joined us. It was real, so completely real. Not like a vision or a movie or something. I felt this. I felt it exactly as if I were there. My brother's mind, his thoughts, his memories, as clear as if I were seeing them myself. Tom, some piece of Tom that the Yerk still carried with him, it was from just a few days earlier. He was sitting at the breakfast table across from me. I saw myself through his eyes. I looked distant, distracted, preoccupied. Hey, midget, what's up? He asked me. Not much. How about you? Oh, I'm going to a meeting. The sharing? I asked him. Yeah, we're doing some cleanup in the park. Do our part for the community and all. Then we're having a barbecue afterward. You really should join. We get to spend more time together. It was just as I remembered it, except that now I felt Tom's emotions, not mine. The real Tom, the true Tom who was crushed beneath the Yerk control. He was crying, sobbing, helplessly, silently sobbing. Not Jake, he cried. Leave Jake alone. Leave my brother alone. Look, I'll never trouble you again. I swear it. Just leave Jake alone. The Yerk waited while the full impact of direct contact with Tom's mind sank into my own. Tom was defeated, desperate. He spent his time wishing he could die. He had given up any hope of escape. Given up completely. That's how it always is, the Yerk said. At first, the host fights, or at least tries. But hour after hour and day after day, they see that they cannot rule their own bodies. The host sees that no one even knows what has happened to them. No one knows he is lost in his own head. And over time, hope dies. The host becomes a faint, the host becomes a faint, shattered creature, like your brother. The Yerk was telling the truth. That was what made it so terrible. It was true. I could feel Tom's complete, utter despair. I could feel that he had accepted defeat. I knew that all he wished for now in the world was an end. And I knew also that I was no stronger than Tom. But still, one hope lingered in me. 3 days, I told the Yerk. In 3 days, you will die. Wait and see, human. Just wait and see. Sorry. I think I was worried about my eyeballs after like 6+ hours of driving, and it is actually my knee that has like locked up on me. Yay! It's very reasonable of my knee to be mad. Okay, pardon the stretching interlude. Chapter 21. I found out very late that first night why the Yerk was so confident. Rachel was keeping guard, Tobias was nearby in a tree. They had brought food, some sandwiches and some juice, which I had eaten. Then, as Rachel sat nearby reading a book by the light of a flashlight, the Yerk pretended to sleep. I guess, in a way, I did actually sleep. I was mentally exhausted. I was weary and depressed, more tired than I have ever been in my life, and yet afraid that if I dreamed, the Yerk would be watching my dreams. My fear was justified. I did dream, the same dream I'd had before. I was the tiger. Tom was my prey. We were in the dark, deep woods, and I was hunting him with all my tiger skill. He was stumbling and noisy and weak. I knew I would take him. At last, too tired to run any further, Tom fell. He waited, helpless, while I gathered the power of my tiger body and prepared to leap. And then, I was no longer the tiger. I was my own prey. I watched through eyes wide with terror as the tiger sprang. I woke up. My eyes were already open. Interesting dream, the Yerk said. Very metaphorical. I looked out through the eyes the I looked out through eyes the Yerk had opened. Rachel was sitting back against the wall. Her book was open on her lap, but her breathing was heavy and regular. Her eyes were closed. She had fallen asleep. Her flashlight was still on. It shone across the rough wood floor. It illuminated my right arm and leg. My arm, my leg. They had changed. My arms were thicker, more powerful, and growing larger still. My hands had swollen and become huge. The fingers were disappearing, replaced by curved claws as sharp as stilettos. Orange and black striped fur appeared, a rippling wave that grew to cover me. I was becoming the tiger. The realization hit me like a jolt of electricity. I was morphing. The Yerk was morphing. How could I have been so stupid? Of course. The Yerk controlled my hands and feet and voice. He controlled my very mind. Of course he had my morphing power too. The others, they didn't realize? They didn't understand? They had tied me up, but it was useless. The Yerk had access to every one of my morphs. The The ropes around my hands were painfully tight as my wrists swelled to become powerful forepaws. Mm. The Yerk merely raised the rope and used the tiger's teeth to tear it apart. I wanted to warn Rachel. She was still asleep. I had to warn her. The Yerk would escape. He might even kill her. But try as I might, I could not reach my own body any longer. I could not reach my own body. I won't kill her, the Yerk said. Like you. Sorry. I won't kill her, the Yerk said. Like you. She is capable of morphing. I will deliver Visser 3 4 morph-capable humans, as well as one Andalite scum. I now saw the world through tiger eyes. The night was brighter, and I heard with tiger ears, ears that caught any sound that might be made by a predator. The tiger sniffed the air, but the breeze was slight and carried no warnings. What a wonderful animal this is, this tiger, the Yerk said. Excellent senses, fast and silent and deadly. The forest was dark and quiet, but for the rustling of leaves in the trees above. Absolute silence as the tiger crept away. No sound as the tiger melted into the shadows. And Rachel still slept. Soon, the shack could no longer be seen. The beam of Rachel's flashlight was swallowed by black night. But the Yerk was uncertain now. He did not know where we were. He did not know which way to go. And then, a sound, a smell. Humans. What are humans doing here? He opened my memory. He searched my brain for an explanation. I had none. Your own thoughts tell me it is wrong. It is very late. Humans, this deep in the forest. The Yerk moved away from the human scent. They might be hunters. They might be park rangers. Those were the possibilities he had pulled from my own brain. The Yerk sent the tiger body into a loping run, but after just 10 minutes, the tiger tired and he had to slow down. Tigers are not distance runners. Which way? The Yerk wondered. And then, once again, human scent, human sounds. I looked through the tiger's eyes and saw nothing. The Yerk once more turned from the human scent. The Yerk searched my memory. South. I must go south. But which way is south? Anything else will find me deeper into the forest. I guess you're lost, I said. The first thing I had said to the Yerk in a long time. Shut up, slave. Once the sun rises in the morning, I will know which way to go. 2 hours in a morph, I reminded him. If I... Sorry. If I'm stuck in tiger morph, then this body will be useless to you. Visser 3 wants my body morph capable. Don't tell me what Visser 3 wants, the Yerk said. But the Yerk knew time was passing. He had to morph back to my normal human shape. Moments later, I was watching the world through human senses. The night vision was less acute. The ears heard too little. The human nose could scarcely smell a thing. The Yerk walked, pushing on as fast as my human body could move without shoes. In a hurry to go nowhere? I asked. I know where I'm going, the Yerk snapped. Then he stopped. Ha! I should have thought of it. Of course, the falcon morph. I will simply fly away. I watched like it was a TV program, like I was far away from my own body. I watched with interest as the body shrank, as wings sprouted, as talons appeared, as wham! The half bird, half human body went rolling end over end across the ground. What? The Yerk demanded. What hit me? He looked around frantically, but falcon eyes are for daytime hunting. They are stunningly good in sunlight. In the dark, they are nothing special. The Yerk continued to morph. Falcon feathers grew. The wings became more fully formed. Wham! A shadow within shadows, a sense of something dark that disappeared before the Yerk could turn the falcon's head. From far away, I realized the falcon body had been injured. There was a deep, bloody gash in the right shoulder, and the Yerk was beginning to be afraid. Wham! A hammer blow, a ripping of flesh and tendon. The invisible enemy had struck again. The falcon would not be able to take wing. Not now. The falcon was crippled, disabled by a silent, invisible enemy. And then I felt hope come alive in me again, because even as the Yerk, crying in pain, demorphed and returned to human form, I saw the enemy. It had landed on a branch. It was outlined against the faint moonlight and infrequent stars. The two little tufts on its head inspired its name. Great horned owl, I said to the Yerk. I can read your every thought. You don't need to tell me what it is, the Yerk snapped. Oh, but I enjoy telling you. It's a great horned owl. It flies without making a sound. Tobias watches them hunt sometimes. To- Tobias says they can hear a mouse burp from 100 yards away. He says they can see a bug blink on a coal black night. I laughed silently in my corner of my own brain. I laughed at the Yerk. As far as that owl is concerned, you might as well have had a spotlight on you. Then, to my amazement, Cassie's thought speech was in my head, a voiceless voice that seemed to belong in a different life. I'm sorry I had to hurt you, Jake, but it was necessary. We realized the Yerk would try morphing, so we were ready. Rachel was only pretending to be asleep. We wanted this Yerk of yours to make his escape when we were most ready for him. So you hang in there, Jake. The forest is full of friends. The humans the tiger had smelled. My friends. Then I felt it again, the sensation that filled me with a grim sort of pleasure. I felt the Yerk's fear. It was good to know that he was afraid. It was very good. Chapter 22. I could feel the Yerk opening my memory like a book again. He was checking through the list of all the morphs I had ever done. Dog, fish, flea, seagull, dolphin, ant, wolf. I knew what he must be thinking. Which one could he use to evade the watchful owl in the tree above us? The owl who saw through the night like it was day and heard the sounds no human could hear. She can't stay an owl more forever, the Yerk said. She has a 2-hour time limit, just as I do. But, of course, there's Rachel and Marco and Axe. You don't know how many of them are here. You don't know where they are or what they are. Can the owl watch a flea? I doubt it. Or an ant? The Yerk smirked. True, but how far can a flea travel in the 2-hour time limit? 20 yards? 30? Then you have to demorph, and my friends will have no trouble finding you. Shut up, he yelled, losing patience. I reveled in his anger. It meant that he was scared. It also meant something else. I could not control my arms or legs. I could not even keep my mind closed from him. But he could not stop my thoughts. He could not stop me from talking to him. And I had the power to annoy him, to distract him when he should be focused on escaping. You think you can harass me? He said, reading my thoughts as soon as I had them. You overestimate yourself. You underestimate us, Yerk. You thought you'd just morph and walk away. You guessed wrong. And your 3 days is less than 2.5 already. Tick tock, Yerk. Tick tock. Let's see whether your owl friend can handle a wolf as easily as she handled the falcon. He began morphing again. The wolf form was one I had enjoyed. Wolves are not subject to much fear, and their instincts are easily manipulated. Not like ants. Or the lizard, that was one of my earliest morphs. I watched as my body sprouted gray fur, as my face bulged out to become a long snout, as my ears slid up the sides of my head and came to rest on the top. I see your owl friend is keeping her distance, the Yerk said. I thought as much. He set out at a fast trot. Unlike tigers, wolves are long distance travelers. They can cover amazing distances at a run. And worse, the wolf brain seemed to have some interior sense of direction. It knew which way would take it deeper into the woods and which way led to the city. We ran through the woods, through a night as dark as night can be. Clouds hung low over the forest, allowing only the palest glow from the moon to get through. A quick jog back to what passes for civilization on this planet. Demorph to human, and your friends will be powerless to stop me, the Yerk said. I wondered who he was trying to convince, me or himself. You're an arrogant bunch, aren't you? You Yerks, I mean. Arrogant? Well, why wouldn't we be? We are the most powerful race in the galaxy, overlords of the taxons, conquerors of the Hork-Bajir and the Stram and the Mach, soon to be conquerors of the humans. Don't count on the humans just yet, I said, and there are still the Andalites. And there are still the Andalites. We'll save the Andalites for last, he hissed. He stopped moving and pricked up his wolf's ears. There came a distinct howling sound, loud and not very far away. It rose and warbled and rose again before dying away. A second wolf voice howled. Another wolf. Two, the Yerk said. I felt him make contact with the wolf's own submerged, instinctive mind. What was the meaning of the howling? A notice, a warning to any other wolves that we are here. Don't come around unless you want to risk a fight. Suddenly, I realized what it meant, and I laughed. This is an area we were in before, I said. As wolves, we discovered... Silence! I know what you found. When will you figure out that I can read your memory just as well as you can? We found another pack of wolves. They think that this is their territory, I went on, enjoying the fact that I was bothering him. Those howls you hear? Those are my friends. Those are my friends. They're calling to the other wolf pack. Better run faster, Yerk. That big male who runs the other pack is tough. The Yerk began running all out, pushing the wolf body for all the speed and endurance it had. The dark tree trunks were a blur as we ran through the night, followed by the howls of wolves who were not wolves. Then a smell on the wind, the smell of another wolf, a male wolf. I believe that's my old friend now, I said, laughing. The Yerk stopped running. Ahead, through the trees, a pair of glittering yellow eyes glared at us. Other eyes appeared. 5 wolves, 5 real wolves, waited for us to try to move forward. Go ahead, I taunted the Yerk. Go kick his butt. Of course, that's a real wolf there, an alpha male, leader of his pack, which means he's probably been in a dozen fights and won them all. Go on, Yerk. Sorry. Go on, Yerk. Tell him how Yerks are the masters of the galaxy. I'm sure he'll be very impressed. I could sense the Yerk's hesitation, his uncertainty. So many species on this planet, he said to himself. So many balances and connections, everything preying on everything else. Every power is checked by some other power. Every advantage is canceled by some disadvantage. Yeah, I said, Earth's a tough neighborhood. When we take this planet, we will eliminate these species. We will simplify. Things should be simpler. Yes, much simpler. I have a newsflash for you, Yerk. I don't think you're going to take this planet. I think this planet is going to take you. Just then, a human voice. So, you about done playing games? Ready to come back to the shack? It was Marco. He was shoeless and wearing his morphine outfit. He had been one of the wolves who led us straight into the enemy pack. Marco shivered. Look, Mr. Yerk, it's cold and I'm freezing. I always knew the situation with the morphine outfits was going to be trouble someday, so come on. Let's all go back to the shack. For a moment, the Yerk was so enraged he was ready to leap at Marco and tear out his throat. But then, lumbering up behind Marco came Rachel, the very large version of Rachel with the trunk, the big leathery ears, and the two huge tusks. Marco seemed to guess what had gone through the Yerk's mind. Go ahead, try something. A wolf pack ahead, a very large, surprisingly fast African elephant behind you, and more surprises in the woods all around you. Oh, and one more thing. Cassie is nestled down somewhere in your fur, sucking your blood, I imagine. She did the flea thing. I realized then that there was a very basic difference between Yerks and humans. A human will fight even when he knows he can't win. Maybe our species is just a little crazy, but human history is full of cases where a handful of guys would fight an entire army. They'd get stomped, but they'd fight anyway. That's not the way it is for Yerks. They are ruthless. They will do anything, absolutely anything, to win. But when the situation is impossible, I mean, totally impossible, they stop fighting. They figure that other Yerks will carry on the fight for them. Different ways of looking at your world. You are fools, the Yerk said, having read my thoughts. It is madness to fight when you cannot win. Yes, it is foolish. It is crazy, I agreed. And it's why we will win. The Yerk demorphed and returned to human form. My human form. Marco walked away into the woods, Rachel rumbled off, and a few minutes later, an owl appeared to lead the way back to the shack. Chapter 23. The next morning, when it seemed like no one was watching, the Yerk tried again. He morphed into an ant. He got 3 feet before running into a group of ants. He got 3 feet before running into a group of ants from a different colony. About 40 of them attacked. They were ripping the ant body apart when the Yerk demorphed and returned to human form. This is a savage planet, he said. We will tame this world when we take it over. But I don't think even he believed it anymore. It was around 9 o'clock in the morning on Saturday that the Yerk first took over my body and brain. By Monday evening, when the sun went down, he was growing distracted, unable to concentrate clearly. By the time the moon rose in a newly clear, starry sky, he was weak with hunger. His slug body cried out for Kandrona rays, the way a human would cry for food or water. I could feel his arrogance evaporate. I could feel his despair. He still had fantasies of being rescued, but he couldn't make those fantasies end very well. Even if he was rescued, he would no longer be the big hero who had destroyed the Animorphs. He would try to think of clever ways to outwit my friends, but he could never be sure who was in the woods. He could never be sure who was in the woods around us, or what form they might have taken. He tried to take on a bird shape again, reforming the peregrine falcon. The DNA had not been affected by the injuries Cassie had inflicted to the earlier morph, of course. The falcon was fine, but it was daylight this time, Tobias landed while the falcon was still half morphed. He grabbed the falcon head in his talon and simply explained that if the Yerk did not demorph, he would be killed. For the first time, the Yerk broke his silence with the... Sorry. Eyeball break. For the first time, the Yerk broke his silence with the others and spoke to them as a Yerk. If you kill me, you'll kill your friend as well, he warned. Yeah, said Tobias. I know. You won't do it. Right from the start, we have all said the same thing. Better to die than to be a controller, Tobias said. But in any case, I don't need to kill you. I can simply put out your eyes. A blind falcon doesn't fly far. The Yerk surrendered and demorphed. We waited as the minutes and hours of the night ticked away. He still hoped for a miracle to save him, but his hunger was a terrible thing, growing with every second. You think you'll win, he sneered at me. You won't win. Your people are blind to what's happening, and the Andalites will not return in time. Maybe, but you won't be there to see it, I said. It must be 4 o'clock in the morning. 5 hours left. Tick tock. You're a cruel little human, aren't you? I don't think so, no. You know I'm dying and you laugh at me. What do you expect? Pity? He laughed. No, we don't. We don't offer pity, and we don't expect pity. We are the masters of the galaxy, conquerors of the Hork-Bajir, and yeah, I know, the mighty Yerk Empire. After that, he said nothing for a while. It was impossible to sleep. He sat with my eyes open. He was too hungry to rest. The hunger infiltrated his mind. It twisted his thoughts. The Yerk homeworld is a simpler place than this planet. Simple and elegant. No, no more than 100 animal species. What you have on Earth? 1 million species? More? What does a planet need with 1 million species? I didn't answer. His time was running out. Let him talk. We Yerks evolved as parasites, not predators. Unlike you humans, we did not kill to eat. We were peaceful. We took many different species as our hosts, and as they evolved, so did we. Over time, the Geds evolved. They were sort of like a monkey, I suppose. We were in the Geds until the Andalites first came. Some of our people still have nothing better than Geds for hosts. What about the Andalites? I asked. What happened when they came to your world? Oh, of course. The Andalite has not told you their story, has he? What a pity. It's such a fine story. Ask your pet Andalite Axe sometime. Ask him about the story of the Andalites and the Yerks. Maybe I will, I said. I hoped the Yerk would keep talking, but he fell silent. The hours passed. An owl left and was replaced by another. The moon went down. Dawn was coming. I could feel it. Yes, the Yerk said, having read my thoughts. Dawn, just a few hours left. Ugh! He cried out in silent pain. The fugue. It begins. The fugue? The final hours. You will not enjoy it, although you may learn a great deal, human. You may learn more than you want to. Ah! I was watching his pain from far away. I was an observer, close enough to know what he was feeling, but feeling none of it for myself. Sorry, close enough to know what he was feeling, but not feeling it myself. At first, it was wave after wave of pain, starvation and death by thirst, all rolled into one agony. The sun came up. Cassie stepped into the shack from the woods outside. She looked at me and nodded. It's happening, isn't it? I wanted to answer, but even now, my voice was not my own. Cassie came and sat down beside me, beside us. Axe says this part is pretty rough. Just remember, when it's all over, I'll be here. She slipped her hand into my hand. I could feel it. So could the Yerk. But he did not reject the small bit of comfort, even though it was intended for me and not for him. His mind was deteriorating. His thoughts were becoming more visible to me, like a movie that kept drifting in and out of focus. I saw images from a strange place, as seen through strange eyes. Liquid all around, shapes, like squids, shooting through the liquid. Yerks, swimming in the Yerk pool, soaking up Kandrona rays. And there were images of the first host, a Ged, So, I thought, that's what a Ged looks like. I had seen a few aboard the Yerk mothership, but I had not known what they were. They were humanoid, short and stooped, with webbed feet and three clumsy fingers. Oops. It's possible that my battery is going to run out before I get through these last few pages. So if that happens, I will probably just plug in and restart the stream from the other room. But there really only are a few pages left, so we'll see. I saw the world as the Yerk had seen it, through Ged eyes. The vision was dim, the hearing was better. The Yerk had been the vision was dim, the hearing was better. The Yerk had been excited at getting his first toast. He had subdued the Ged mind with ruthless ease, crushing it with his superior intelligence and will. The memory made me sick. The Ged's bewilderment, his fear, and the Yerk's fierce arrogance. I turned my attention away from the memory and back to the world around me. To my surprise, I noticed that my arms were shaking, my legs were shaking. Cassie had put her arm around my shoulders. Jake, if you can hear me, it's almost 8. 1 hour to go. Jake, the yerk in your head is dying. Yes, I wanted to say, he is. Chapter 24. The Fugue. The final hours of the yerk's life. I was watching him die. A lot has happened to me since I first saw the Andalite prince land in that construction site. More strange things than happen to most people in their entire lives, but the strangest was this, and the saddest. The yerk cried in pain, again and again, and the visions came floating up, crystal clear, as if they had just happened. Visions of the good times in the yerk's life, and of the bad times. The emotions were strange. Alien. I guess that's the word for them. There was no memory of love. I guess yerks don't do love. But there was an affection. Pride, fear, regret. Those ones I could understand. And along with the yerk's own memories, I began to see the minds of his hosts. The Ged, who had had a name no human could have hoped to pronounce. The Hork-Bajir warrior who had fought the yerk in the Hork-Bajir warrior who had fought the yerk in his head every day of his life. The Hork-Bajir who had been forced to attack his own kind and destroy his own friends as an unwilling slave of the yerks. But it was more than just memories. It was more. The yerk had carried with him some small part of the Hork-Bajir war. The yerk had carried with him some small part of that Hork-Bajir warrior's being. Like a computer transferring a document onto a floppy disk, I realized, part of the Ged and part of the Hork-Bajir had been transferred permanently to the yerk. Is that at all the way floppy disks work? And to my shock, I knew that those parts were now being transferred to me. And then, the memories I feared most. Tom. He had joined the sharing for a simple, silly reason. A pretty girl who he liked was a member. He had wanted to get close to her. He had gone to meetings. He had played along with them, never guessing the truth. All he had cared about was the girl. He had stumbled, accidentally, into a secret leadership meeting. He, th- he thought the girl he liked was seeing another boy, but she was one of them. He had followed her, wandered into a meeting, and seen Visser 3. Visser 3 in his Andalite body. I saw the controllers grab a yelling, punching, kicking Tom. I saw as they tied him up, carried him through secret passageways to the great underground yerk pool. I saw him scream as he realized what was happening. I felt his fear. I felt his rage as the yerk slug crawled into his ear and wrapped itself around his brain. I felt every ounce of his despair. And, like the Ged and the Hork-Bajir, this human, my brother, became a part of me. The yerk was no longer in pain. It was beyond pain. I opened my eyes and looked at Cassie. It happened so naturally. I opened my eyes by my own will. I don't know how she knew, but I guess she did. She nodded slightly as she met my gaze. For the first time in more than an hour, the yerk spoke. So, you win, human. The yerk shuddered. I could feel it. The yerk shuddered. I could feel it. A physical spasm. My vision changed. It's hard to describe. I felt as if I were seeing through things, into things. Like I could see the front and back and top and bottom and inside of everything all at once. And then I saw it, a creature or a machine, some combination of both. Hmm, Sorry. Yeah. Then I saw it, a creature or a machine, some combination of both. It had no arms, it sat still, as if unable to move, on a throne that was miles high. Its head was a single eye. The eye turned slowly, left, right. I trembled. I prayed it would not look my way. And then it saw me. The eye, the blood red eye, looked straight at me. It saw me. It saw me. No, no! I cried in silent terror. I looked away, and when I opened my eyes again, all I saw was a weird glow. The glow faded, little by little. I was trembling. It's over, Jake, Cassie said. I rose slowly to my feet. I moved my own legs. I was in control of myself again. I I looked down on the wooden floor of the shack. A gray slug, not 6 inches long, lay there, still. As we watched, it withered and shriveled and became nothing. Chapter 25. Jake, are you all right, sweetheart? My mom asked me that night at dinner. I looked up. I'd been staring at my food, I realized. Something with pasta and tuna. What? I asked. My mom and dad exchanged one of their worried parent looks. Well, you're not eating. Don't you like it? I shrugged. Sorry. It's fine. I was just distracted. My dad nodded. It's just a change from the last 2 nights. You've been eating like you were trying to eat everything in the house. I was? Tom cocked an eyebrow at me. What? Now you're going to pretend like it didn't happen? Last night you sat here and ate 6 pieces of chicken and kept yapping about how great it was. Then you ate a pie. A pie, which was supposed to be for the 4 of us. I hid a smile. Of course. Axe. The the Andalite had been playing me for 3 days, 2 hours at a time. Axe was dangerous around food. The sense of taste was still totally amazing to him. When he was in human morph, you didn't want to get between him and a bar of chocolate. Or a pie, I guess. You're a total pig, Tom said. Chicken, corn, potatoes, or, as you kept saying, potatoes, toes, tatoes. I thought you'd gone nuts. And you were suspicious, Yerk? I thought, looking at my brother. A new Yerk was in Tom's head, another arrogant master of the galaxy. My brother was trapped in a small corner of his own mind, able to see and feel, but powerless to do a thing. I knew. I didn't sleep much that night. I did not want the dreams to come. I feared terrible nightmares of the eye. Yeah, I feared terrible nightmares of the eye that had stared at me from a different universe. But the only dream that came was a familiar one. I was the tiger. My brother was the prey. But in the end, I was my brother, and he was me. On the news that night, there was a small report on the closing of the new hospital. There was no explanation, but I knew what had happened. The Yerks knew that their plan was blown. They understood that we knew about it. We had hurt them pretty badly, but I knew better than to celebrate. Visor 3 would be more determined than ever to stop us. The next day, I did something stupid. At least, Marco kept telling me it was stupid, but he didn't object very much. He understood. We all met at Cassie's barn, and I used her dad's cellular phone to call Tom at home. I went partially into a wolf morph before I did, just enough to make the smallest changes. Enough to change the shape of my mouth and tongue and throat so that my voice would sound very different. Tom picked it up on the third ring. Yeah? I have a message, I said, in a thick, twisted voice that did not sound like me at all. What? Tom asked. Don't give up, Tom. Don't ever give up. I hung up before he could say anything. Do you think Tom, the real Tom, heard it? Rachel asked. He heard, I answered. I wondered if he would have the strength to hold on. But I knew the answer. See, a part of my brother was in my own mind now, along with echoes of a long-dead Hork-Bajir and a simple Ged, and yes, even a bit of a Yerk with dreams of glory. Marco smiled his sardonic smile. And is it true? Will we win? This is a very complicated planet, Marco. That's what I hear, anyway. And it's a very strange universe. Anything could happen. And in case my battery runs out imminently, that is the end of the 6th book in the Animorphs series, The Capture. Yay! Thank you so much for joining me. And good night.